Why is sex the number one or number two thing that couples come to therapy about or couples struggle with? There's all these issues around mismatched libido. One person has a lot of desire, the other person has a little desire. And there's plenty of different
Mhm.
factors that go into that, even just biologically. But then there are preferences, there are issues with initiating, there are ideas or beliefs we have around how often we should be having sex. There are people who feel connected and feel loved primarily through sex. And then there are people
Mhm.
who that's kind of the last piece of the puzzle is sex. The first piece or the foundational piece is the emotional connection and quality time and all these other things that help us to feel loved and seen and safe so that we can then move into enjoying a healthy sex life.
As you're talking, it just makes me think about how nuanced and complex sex and intimacy can be. Aside from preferences and aside from compatibility, aside from libido, each person comes in with different expectations and ideas and imprints and childhood wounds that can influence their desire around sexuality and their idea around sex and sexuality. And so it's quite like a complicated and complex, but sometimes really natural. It's the most natural thing that there is, one of them, um, that we have. And it was like all of life is based on reproduction. And so it is so natural. And at the same time, as we're looking at relationships and we're looking at specifically humans in relationships, there's so many different ideas um, around it, which can leave people really stuck. And as I'm saying that, it's almost like there's this mind piece that comes in. Like our body and our instinct likely naturally know what to do um, a lot of the time, but we have different imprints or stressors or challenges or ideas that can get in the way of that.
It is fascinating to think about sex as the most natural, basic part of being human and
Mhm.
how many people are so disconnected from it because of what
Hmm.
you were just saying, the mind, the emotions, the imprints from childhood, the messages from society. It all gets in the way of this very basic natural thing.
Well, there's even like religious expectations, and it's really interesting that we exist in a society where I mean, pornography is one of the biggest industries that we have, like billions and billion-dollar industry. That's actually the place that most young people ex experience sexual content, I guess, for the first time is through pornography or learning about sex. Like they learn about it and see it in pornography. Um, it's fascinating that like within a culture that has pornography, it's a huge industry. We're also in a culture where there's different like religious ideals and expectations of like wait until marriage um, or cultural stigmas like women who have sex with multiple partners can be labeled as promiscuous or sluts or all these kind of things. So there's these like expectations and judgments and like so much mixed in that it's really strange. And I think of young people a lot, how, in my experience, how strange it felt um, to be becoming aware of sex, to coming online with my own sexuality, and feeling the cultural stigmas and expectations and kind of a lot of confusion around it. And I think that's maybe a part of this discussion is like how what are we getting at here? And I think what we're getting at is like there's a lot of material around sex. And yet at the same time, there's this like natural instinct and movement within sex that's as natural as anything in the whole universe. And how do we reconcile those things and how do we find our way within all the noise?
Mhm. Yeah, I think performance is a big one. And
Mhm,
especially for women in our culture, we are programmed to observe our own bodies and be the observer of our own bodies. And when I say that, what I mean is like put ourselves in the other person's shoes and try to see ourselves from their perspective. Like
mhm,
when we are, I mean, I think we do this in day to day life, just running errands or going to the grocery store or whatever it is, going out to dinner. Women often are trying to imagine what other people are thinking and feeling when they look at us. Is this making sense?
well, yeah, women have been so objectified that then they learn to objectify themselves.
Mhm.
Women
And
have
so, of
been
course.
dehumanized and objectified to the point that, yeah, it's like, "Oh, how does society want me to be? How do other people expect me to be? Like, what who am I?" And that is such a core issue for women, and then especially in regards to sex.
Mhm. So, of course, naturally, when we're in the bedroom and fully naked,
Mhm,
that is such a big part of a lot of women's sexual experience is just this awareness of their body and worrying about how they look or how they're performing or what they're supposed to be doing, like really just consumed with what the other person is experiencing. And it's beautiful to be attuned to the other person and care about what they're experiencing. But I also think that as women, our own experience of ourselves, of the other person, of our body, of our pleasure gets lost. We it gets lost
mm,
in all of that. We're not connected to what we are actually experiencing.
mhm. Right, and thinking about, like, women who measure their self-worth even around the experience of the other person. Like, how much are other people accepting me? Or in the bedroom, like, how much is my partner enjoying, right? Versus, like, am I enjoying this? And what feels good to me versus, as you said, it's so good to be attuned and to be there together. But so many women, especially in this culture so filled with pornography, women do feel this almost need to be performative or this expectation to be performative or like that the men have an expectation on them or um and sometimes that is true because possibly there has been so much exposure to the performative act of pornography, and so I think that there's so much that can get in the way on so many levels between men and women in their pleasure, their authentic pleasure, and their authentic connection because pornography doesn't just affect women and women's connection to their body and intimacy, it affects men. And obviously, statistically, men are watching porn more than women, but so do women. And so, mm, for both parties, they're being affected, right?
Yeah, and I think about too the expression or initiation during sex as one piece versus um receiving, giving versus receiving.
Mm,
So, a woman who or anyone, but a woman who maybe she really prefers her partner to take the lead and control all of it. Every movement, every
mhm,
position, the speed, all of it. Like I just kind of want to um surrender to you and allow you to take control, and that might feel really safe because she is not having to fully participate in a really active way that might feel threatening to her system, might feel really scary or not okay based on her programming around sex. And I think about a child who wasn't able to express themselves like sensually. I mean, not sexually as a kid, but well, sometimes, but just sensually in their body, not allowed to feel good. Maybe they
mm,
are exploring their body and a parent catches them and freaks out. And there's a lot
mm,
of the child experiences a lot of shame around that, in messages like don't touch your body or that's gross or that's weird. Even around experiencing, yeah, pleasure in that way and how that carries forward. And that could cause somebody to really struggle and feel discomfort around initiating or kind of taking the lead or really allowing themselves to be fully present to their own pleasure. There's like this need
mhm.
to maybe stay in the mind and stay in control and be very hyper vigilant during sex.
What do you think about, I think it's like 30% of women who have never had an orgasm during penetrative sex?
Yes. What do I think about that? Um, I wonder about all kinds of things. I wonder about,
Yeah,
yeah,
me too.
her ability to fully enjoy her body and fully be present. Of course, there's also the partner's role in that too. The
Mhm,
safety to really get to know your own body and experiment with that. And I mean, really, you have to get out of your own head to be able to experience pleasure. You have to relax the need for control in order to be fully
mm,
present in it.
mhm. And you have to have somebody willing to do something different
Mhm.
and to really have the patience and willingness to explore your body with you. It takes both participants, the vulnerability to open and to explore and to receive and to be curious even after like years and years and years of not being able to. And then it takes the other participant to be curious as well and um try something new and not just go through the same motions and routines. Um, yeah, and really kind of be open for a new experience. And at the same time, I think I can imagine how frustrating that would be for a woman to not experience that. And maybe from what I understand and know people in these situations where then they have toys, they've got certain things that they've learned how to use, that they do enjoy sex in different ways because I think sometimes the pressure to orgasm during sex can feel so strong as well.
Mhm.
Right. They can feel like something's wrong with their body and, a pressure around it. Like, okay, we're going to explore your body and we're going to, learn how to make you orgasm during sex. And that that can feel um not that relaxing on its own too, depending on the way that it's approached and held and tended to.
Right. I need to have an orgasm in order for this to be enjoyable or successful, in
Mm.
order for my partner to feel good about themselves and for this to feel like a complete experience. And heck yeah, if you have this, if you feel that like looming over you while you're trying to relax into pleasure, and you know that the other person really wants you to reach some kind of outcome, right? Really wants you to have an orgasm. That's so important to them. Well, then that's going to be really hard to get out of your head and not think about that and not worry about that and create this internal feeling of pressure. I think it's
Mhm.
really important to ask ourselves, kind of with anything in relationship, including sex, whatever our comfort zone is and whatever our discomfort zone is, to just ask ourselves questions, to get curious about that. Where does that come from? Why is it so important to me that my partner climaxes every time we're intimate? Why is that my focus and my goal? And if that doesn't happen, I'm devastated. What does that mean? What do I make it mean about them? What do I make it mean about me? Where might this be stemming from? And then, these same kind of
Mhm.
questions around what I was speaking to earlier with initiating or expressing or um, being in the driver's seat of your own pleasure or co creating the experience. Is there hesitation around that? Why does that feel scary?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So we're exploring this difference between performance and pleasure. And sometimes they can look the same. Maybe sometimes the performance is pleasurable, and sometimes maybe the performative actions do bring a lot of connection and enjoyment. But sometimes there can be a disconnect, and sometimes pleasure looks really different, or what feels good looks really different than the ways that maybe people were imprinted to believe. And so, what we're kind of inviting is this opportunity to learn about one's own specific needs and pleasure. And that's going to look different to each person. And pleasure, you said the word, maybe it was before the call, but intimacy. It's like pleasure and intimacy versus like performance and maybe habitual actions. And it's like pleasure requires attunement, pleasure requires curiosity, intimacy requires vulnerability. And those are very different ways to approach sex and sexuality.
Right. Two people bringing their own experiences their own practices or ways of relating to sex, their own childhood programming, societal programming related to sex, their own ideas, all of these things. Each person has their own set that they're bringing to the sex, the act, the coming together. And so it's not, oh, this is my partner's way of approaching our sexual intimacy. And so I need to figure out how to really question my way or shift my way to enter into their sexual world or try to meet them there. It's really this co-creation and this opportunity for both people to get really curious with each other and to create their own version of what sex looks like for them, which can be very different from what they're used to. And I think that's beautiful.
Mhm. I think that's beautiful too. As you were talking, I was feeling that exact same thing. Like, this is so beautiful. It's like two people coming together. And it's like maybe one person's used to like dancing the tango and the other's like used to ballroom dancing. And like, how do those people come together and create their own dance? Like, what is their rhythm? What is their harmony? Like, how do they be in that moment together and create this new way? It's so beautiful to think about this co-creative artistic process and journey and connection potential through it. Like, wow, so much to explore.
Yeah. And if you can cut through all of the beliefs and um, limitations, and if both people feel safe enough to participate in that co-creation process, that can be a really beautiful thing. And for a lot of people that are really bogged down with shame and fears around performance and all of the things that we were talking about, that can be a really terrifying thing to even open up the
Mhm.
conversation or be open to exploring.
Totally. Right. Like, is the tango the right way to do it? Or it's like, or is there like a whole new way that we create together? Or is there a dance that we both enjoy? Um, or even like, let me invite you to explore what ballroom dancing is like. Like there's so many ways to explore, but realizing like there's no right way to do it. The right way is your way and the way that you and your partner explore together. And just this check-in, like, where am I? Am I in the mind of thinking that there's a performance? Is there a right way to do this? Or am I really in a place where I can be vulnerable and be intimate and explore pleasure with this other person? So much more to explore around sex and sexuality, I think.
Mm, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks for joining for this one, everyone, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. We'll see you next week.